You can't question it too much. It's not hard science fiction. If you try to figure out how the time travel works, you're going to have a bad day. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I am Jessica and I am here today to share with you all of the books that I read in January of 2024. This was a great reading month for me. I found 2 5-star reads. I only read one book that I didn't like at all, but I am getting ahead of myself. I am excited to talk through these books and give you my opinion about whether or not you should read them yourself. I read Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. I checked a copy of this out of the library. It is enormous. It's chunky, right? This is the first book in the Expanse series, which there is a TV show of the Expanse. I haven't seen it. I didn't really know that much about it, but I saw a lot of people recommending it as kind of the Game of Thrones of science fiction, and I would like to read more science fiction that is kind of in that kind of epic vein. I probably read more fantasy right now than I do science fiction. And I think that's because I'm always reading a series. I'm reading something that's really, pushing me along with the characters. And so I thought I would try The Expanse to see if that could give me that same kind of feel. I actually really liked this for a first book in the series. In Leviathan Wakes, we are facing a future that is not the happy kind of Star Trek, everyone loves everybody, that we have no problems anymore kind of future. It feels like a future that's very realistic for where our world could go, where we make it to space. We have space stations, we have planets, but also we are still fighting with each other over the same old problems that we have always been fighting about. We follow 2 main characters in this book, and they are very kind of different from each other. One of them is a space captain who's very idealistic and believes in the freedom of information and people being able to make their own choices. And the other one is kind of a grizzled, down on his luck, drinks too much kind of cop, and they eventually meet and they don't like each other, and honestly, it's pretty entertaining. There's a lot of drama in this book. I don't really want to spoil the plot line. I would say that if you have any interest in this at all, I would just recommend checking it out. I gave it 4 stars. The only thing I would say is that in this first book, I did not feel that the female characters were treated like they really had a lot of agency of their own. But I do understand that that gets better from looking it up. So if you're interested in reading the book, I wouldn't let that deter you. After reading Leviathan Wakes, I was ready for something a little bit lighter. So I went ahead and I picked up Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. I know, Ali Hazelwood. I know all her books are the same. I know she writes about super, super tall guys and teeny, teeny, tiny little girls, and it's a lot. But I have to tell you that these books really work for me. I just find them so charming. And in this book in particular, I felt like Ali Hazelwood was just kind of like acknowledging that she knows that her books can be a little bit ridiculous. I feel like Ali Hazelwood is very self-aware of the fact that her books have these tropes. She kind of pokes fun at it a few times in here. This one is about a character who is working as an adjunct professor at several different universities, barely scraping by. She doesn't have health insurance. It's not a great time. I used to work as an adjunct professor, and I can tell you that this portrayal of what it's like and exactly how exploited that entire class of workers is super accurate. So for me, I really enjoyed it. I thought the romance was sweet. I thought the inner workings of the university, the politics, I thought all of that was very true to life. It's certainly something that I think Ali Hazelwood has a lot of experience with herself, so she definitely pulled from that. But as far as I'm concerned, this is her best book. I gave it 5 stars and I recommend it. The first book that I finished this year was a 5-star read, and that book was In Memoriam by Alice Wynne. This book was so good. It was recommended to me by Willow of Willow Talks Books. It's literary fiction. It's a historical fiction. It is amazing. 100%. This is going to stick with me for a really long time. Let me give you a little bit of a summary so you have some kind of an idea of whether you might like it. In this story, we follow Gaunt and Elwood, and they are 2 British schoolboys close to the age of graduating while World War I is raging. And it's assumed that they're going to join up just as soon as they graduate. They have a love for each other that they're really not able to talk about or even acknowledge in the society that they live in. They do end up going to war. We do experience all of the sights and the smells and the sounds of the trenches. It's a very emotional read. It's a very dark read. It's definitely, you definitely need to be prepared for reading about a war when you go to read this book, but it's also a love story. Gaunt and Elwood love each other as imperfect as they are. I think, bear with me, this might be kind of a weird recommendation. If you liked The Song of Achilles, I think you would like this book. It has a lot of similar themes. It has a similar tone. The writing is beautiful. So that would be my recommendation. I haven't seen a ton of people reading it. I picked up this hard copy yesterday at the bookstore. They were having a 30% off one hardcover sale at my local bookstore. So I went ahead and picked this up because it was a 5-star read, and I know that I'm going to want to keep this on my shelves. I think the cover is beautiful. 5 stars, definitely. You should read this book. The second book that I read in January was called Role Playing by Kathy Yardley. This is a story about 2 middle-aged gamers who fall in love. I thought the idea of a gamer romance among middle-aged people seemed like it would be super fun. Unfortunately, this book was not really for me. I thought that the male main character, I thought the male lead, I thought he was sweet. I thought he was nice. He wasn't an alpha male or anything like that, which would be something that would turn me off in a romance. But I felt like the main female character seemed like she was about 20 years old and not 55 like she was supposed to be. So it just didn't really work for me. Overall, I thought the video game aspect of it didn't seem super true to what it's actually like to play video games in real life. So this one's a pass for me. I can't recommend it, but there are a lot of people who really enjoyed it, so that might just be my personal taste. Next, I read The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. So The Justice of Kings is a story that is primarily about the law. So it's a really unusual topic in fantasy. I went into it thinking, we were going to follow this character who is a judge. He's going all around the place. He is judging the people within this empire based on the laws of the empire. And I thought that was going to be really interesting, and I thought we were going to be following his viewpoint. But as it turns out, we don't follow his viewpoint. There is another POV character. Her name is Helena, and she is his clerk. And a lot of people seem to have really enjoyed that choice, the distance that that gives you from the main character himself. But I personally, for me, that was not a choice that I enjoyed. I felt like I couldn't really connect to the characters. And Helena herself felt much younger than the age that she was supposed to be. I didn't think that she was a very well-written female character. So I really struggled my way through this one. I know a lot of people really, really love this. I hear that the second book is great. I gave this 3 stars. I'm not sure that I'm going to continue on in the series because I just had a really hard time finishing it. And I'm just not sure that I want to spend that much time inside the head of a character who really did not appeal to me. So if you love this book, no shade to you. I am happy. I wish I loved this book more than I did, but it was one that just did not work for my personal taste. I am slowly working my way through the Wayward Children series by Shauna Maguire. So I read this month In an Absent Dream, which is the 4th book in the series. This is the story of Lundy, who we meet in the 1st book of the series as a teacher at Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children. So the story takes place in the 1960s. Lundy is a bookish child. She's lonely. She doesn't have a lot of friends, but it seems like books are her friends, and so that's okay. One day a door appears to her, as it does to all of the children in these books, and she goes inside and she finds her way to the Goblin Market. In the Goblin Market, the most important thing is fair value. So when you're trading with someone, you need to make sure that you are giving them fair value. And if you don't give someone fair value for their trade, there will be a punishment. I enjoyed this book. Lundy was someone I hadn't remembered that well because we hadn't seen her since the 1st book, so I was certainly interested in her backstory. It didn't hit me as hard as some of the other stories. Books 1 and 2 remain my two favorite in the series so far. But I did enjoy reading it, and I'm looking forward to continuing on with the next book soon. The next book I read was Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I thought that this book was pretty darn delightful. I thought it was cute. I thought it was sweet. It was romantic. It's definitely one that I would recommend. Our main character thinks that her true love is under a love spell, so she appeals to a kind of god or immortal being within this world to break the spell. He does what she has asked him to do. He breaks up a wedding that is about to happen, but it doesn't go exactly the way that she hoped that it would go. The plot's kind of hard to describe. I keep trying. I would recommend it if you think that you would like a cute, sweet story. I'm planning to continue. There are 2 other books in the trilogy, so I'm going to be reading those this year at some point, and I'm very much looking forward to that. The next book that I read is Godkiller. The first thing I have to say about Godkiller is that cover is so pretty. I actually wish that I had given it 5 stars so that I had an excuse for buying a physical copy of it, which is usually the way that I fill my bookshelves. We follow a character who is a god killer. So her job within this world is to travel around, and if people pay her money, she will take care of a troublesome god that might be bothering their town. There are so many gods within this world, and they are mischievous, they are troublemakers, sometimes they are violent, sometimes they're murderous. And her job is to take care of gods who maybe have gotten out of hand. There are 4 POV characters within this book when it's only 300 pages long, and you would think that would be too many, but actually I felt like the strongest thing about this book was the character work. The characters were excellent. They were distinct. I rooted for every single one of them, and I didn't want anything bad to happen. The only thing I would say about this book is that the pacing is a little bit slow in the middle of the book. The characters go on a kind of quest, if you will, on a journey, and it feels like it takes a lot longer than it does. It really dragged for me. In the end, the action all came together. It was very exciting at the end of the book. It ends on not a cliffhanger exactly, but enough of a cliffhanger that I need to read the next book the minute that it comes out. So I am already on the list at the library for the sequel. I would definitely recommend checking out Godkiller. It's not very long. I think it's a really good fantasy debut. Pacing issues aside, I loved it. My final book of the month is one that I feel like I have seen everywhere online lately, and that is This Is How You Lose the Time War. In this book, which I'm going to call Time War, so I don't have to say that whole title every time, we follow soldiers who are rivals, who are on opposite sides of this conflict, and they are writing each other letters. So every chapter really has a format where you're following the action from one character's point of view, and then you're reading a letter that is written to them by the other character. The story moves all over the place. We move all through time periods we would recognize from our own history, all the way to places that are very futuristic that don't really seem like anything that we could imagine now. The prose in this book is gorgeous. If you like really romantic lyrical prose, I think you would like this book. The letters that they write each other are so romantic. A lot of people say that this book is confusing, and I think it can be confusing if you don't just kind of give yourself over to the narrative and say, well, yes, this is what's happening. This makes complete sense. You can't question it too much. It's not hard science fiction. If you try to figure out how the time travel works, you're going to have a bad day. But I think it's absolutely worth reading. It's not long. If you like romance, I think that you would like this book. I think it's not a big investment. It's not super long, but I think it's a book that I'm going to be thinking about for a long time. Thank you so much for watching my video of books that I read in January. I hope that if you liked the video, you will comment. Let me know what you thought about the books that I read. Tell me what some of your books were that you really loved that you read in the month of January. If you feel so inclined, please subscribe to my channel. I am a new channel, and every subscription really means a lot to me, and I love having more people here to have a conversation with about books. I hope you've all had a great month. I hope you have a great February. Have a great week. Bye.